Welcome to the Startup of the Year podcast, where each episode we showcase exciting new companies from around the world. This podcast is produced by Established, creators of the Startup of the Year program. Established is focused on helping organizations with their innovation, startup, and communication strategies.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Startup of the Year podcast. I'm Frank Gruber, the co-founder and co-CEO of Established, and the co-founder of Established Ventures, the team behind the Startup of the Year community and this very podcast. In this episode, I'm talking with David Dworschak. He's the co-founder and co-CEO of Kamana Health, which is an alumni of the Startup of the Year program, and they participated in Memphis at our summit in 2019, which seems like ages ago, but it really wasn't that long. Pandemic definitely kind of blurs things a little bit. But they're also a Established Ventures portfolio company, and for those of you not familiar, Established Ventures invests in companies that come through our program, where it's our investment arm, if you will. And more specifically about Kamana, they're a customer-centric, feedback-driven software for healthcare staffing, and they also enable the healthcare workforce to manage their credentials and careers from a single place. And they allow staffing agencies to hire and collaborate with the workforce in a far more efficient way. So a couple things they're doing there, and taking a lot of paperwork and streamlining it is one major way to put it, and they're doing it very well. I'm excited to talk with Dave because and learn more about their recent exit. They were acquired by Triage Staffing, and I thought that our listeners could really learn from Dave and his successful exit and some of the things that he went through along the way. So excited to have Dave here today. But before we get started with our interview, as always, we'd like to share some advice from our established team members. And first up, I'd like to have our co-CEO, Jen Consalvo, come and join us and share some tips about telling your story.
Hi, everyone. Today I want to talk about telling your story. If you have a startup or a technology and you want others to know about it, which we assume at some point you do, then it's critical that you learn how to tell them. It sounds so simple, right? But let me tell you, in my experience of talking with thousands of startups over the past decade, it's definitely not. When I ask a startup to give me their quick pitch, I expect maybe 2 to 3 minutes. If someone launches into a 10 to 15 minute deep dive, I know that they don't understand a critical pillar of starting a company, which is communications. Many people write this off by putting all their focus into their code or design, but startups grow because of the networks you build around them, and those networks are created by the people who get it and share it. Think about it this way. Your goal should be to tell me something that I can easily repeat to someone else, something I want to share with others and have a high probability of getting it right when I do share it. So where do you start? Come up with something simple, some simple pitches, and practice with people. Join pitch competitions, go to networking events, even online forums. Test your message and see what kind of feedback you get. Ask people you pitch to explain it back to you. Did they get it? Awesome. No? Keep trying and try again. Keep honing that message until you get it right. If you're on a startup journey or thinking about it, I wish you an exciting journey. Back to you, Frank.
Thanks, Jen. Storytelling, so important. Couldn't agree with you more. Next up, we've got Rich Maloy, our VP of Engagement with Established and part of Established Ventures as well, with some tips for our startup founders in a segment we call the VC Minute.
Hi, this is Rich Maloy with Established Ventures, bringing you the VC Minute. Quick advice to help startup founders fundraise better. Let's talk about telling an investor you're interested. It may seem to you that after spending the last 30 to 60 minutes pitching your business to a venture fund, that you obviously want them to invest in you. But it may not be obvious. I heard of a case last week where a startup nearly missed out on getting a lead because the fund didn't think the startup was keen on working with them. I'll share a story with you that I heard somewhere along the way in my sales career. A local guy was running for a political office and he ran a good campaign, but he lost. Afterwards, he's talking to his neighbor and he's bemoaning the loss and says, "Well, at least you voted for me." And the neighbor looks down sheepishly and says, "Well, the other candidate asked me to vote for her, and you never asked me to vote for you." So how are you going to get the sale if you don't ask for the close? How are you going to get the investment if you don't ask for it? Tie it in with why they're a good fit for you. It can be as simple as, "We think you're a great fit for our business because of your investment in XYZ and your expertise in marketplaces. We'd love to have you involved and welcome your investment. What are the next steps in your process?" That's all for the VC Minute. Back to you, Frank.
Thanks, Rich. Interesting perspective as always, and obviously making sure VCs and investors know that you want them involved. Super important, and probably not something you think about every day. So really helpful. Thanks, Rich. And now we're going to share some updates about some of the things we've been working on at Start of the Year and Established. And starting out with the fact that our Start of the Year 2021 application is currently open. So I don't know what you're waiting for. You should apply today if you're a startup that's looking for exposure or being part of our growing community of founders and investors and corporate leaders and innovators and entrepreneurs to support our organizations. Just apply now. You go to soty.link/apply21. Again, it's soty.link/APPLY21, apply 21. And it's really simple, a form, you just fill it out and apply. It's free to apply, and we'll be rolling out the invites to be a part of the top 100, which will participate in our summit, which will happen in the fall. So outside of that, we have lots of opportunities to engage through a number of different office hours opportunities. We've got some Clubhouse opportunities as well. If you're on the app Clubhouse, we do office hours over there, as well as some other pop-up events and things. So be ready over there. And you can join our Clubhouse. We have a club called the Startup Community Club and learn more about that. And a number of other opportunities along the way as we post up different types of events focused on verticals and things throughout the year. So hope you can join us in the community. All you need to do is apply today, soty.link/apply21. Speaking of other events, we've been working with Powder Keg now since last year. We hosted with them. We worked with them on their Unvalley event, which took place in December, and we're looking forward to working with them again. So taking place on May 19th and 20th, we're going to have another event working with them. Focused, will be some great speakers. Actually, we'll be announcing soon. And if you're looking for talent, or if you're looking for advice around startups and growing your business, you definitely want to check it out. If you go to powderkeg.com/events, again, it's powderkeg.com/events. We think it's going to be a really good time, and some pretty big names going to be participating. So you're going to want to take a look at that. And I don't think I can say anything else about it yet. So more to come there. But looking forward to our Unvalley event coming up in May. All right, so we've got a partner update, one of our alumni actually as well. So it's kind of both. So last year, Finmark did fantastic as a Startup of the Year top 5 company. They participated in the event and did great. And ultimately, we ended up working with them, actually investing in them through Established Ventures, as well as now working with them as they have just a great software and tool. So we're drinking our own champagne here in a big way, because they offer a product that allows startups to create the revenue forecasting and cash projections and runway projections and things that you need to understand when you're running a startup. So it's something we've seen as a big opportunity in the market, a big hole in the marketplace, and so we feel like this tool could really help a lot of startups. And so we partnered to help spread the word about it. You can learn more if you go to est.us/Finmark, FINMARK, est.us/Finmark. You can get a 30-day free trial of Finmark and check it out. And we're just happy to be supporting and standing up with a product that's been a part of our community and a founder that's been a part of our community for quite some time. So check it out if you're interested and you're trying to figure out your financial model. This could be the tool that could really help you move forward. So again, it's est.us/Finmark. All right. So if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, we work with a lot of different partners as well. We've got a number of different opportunities. So if you're interested in learning more about those opportunities, you just go to est.us/programs. You'll get notified of these programs, whether it be with NASA or with some of our other organizations we work with. We're always finding different ways to create opportunities for startups and offer them to you. So you're going to want to jump over there at established.us/programs and sign up and learn more about these programs that are coming out. One of which is NASA iTech. We work with helping them find startups for their various opportunities, and you can apply to be a part of some of their different events through there as well. So lots of good stuff coming. Excited about the path here. And I already mentioned earlier, we've got some Clubhouse opportunities too, which are pretty easy to jump into if you're on that app. Sorry if you're only on Android right now. They hopefully will be on Android soon. But in the meantime, if you're an iOS user, you can go to est.us/clubhouse and join our startup community club. And we'll be doing some other events over there as well. All right. I think that's it for now. Let's listen into the conversation with David Dworschak from Kamana Health. Really excited to talk to him and learn more about his recent exit. All right, Dave, how about we jump right in? Can you explain Kamana for our listeners so they know more about what you've been up to?
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me, Frank. So Kamana is a software platform working to solve problems in the healthcare staffing industry. So for nursing and allied health professionals who deal with just a ton of paperwork and a ton of repetitive processes in the way that they really navigate their careers and kind of job shifts, particularly right now focused in the travel nursing space. We help nurses and allied health professionals store, track, manage, and share their credentials from a single place with multiple employers. And then on the other side, for the employer side, which currently we're focused on the healthcare staffing sector. So staffing agencies to really manage their relationships and the onboarding and compliance process with healthcare professionals. So the pain point we're really set out to solve is on both sides of the equation, the healthcare professional and the staffing agency, as well as the hospital. There's just a ton of duplicate, manual, repetitive process that happens to get people placed into hospitals. Not only impacts the ability to provide like great care to patients in hospitals, but also just massively drives up the cost within the healthcare system. So looking to make that stuff a little bit easier.
Fantastic. And just because I'm curious, where does the name come from, Kamana? What was the kind of backstory there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So where it really comes from is naming a company in 2019 was really hard. Domain names are hard to come by. So we kind of went down the translation path of, where can we find a name that kind of means something, but is short and has a good domain name. And ultimately, through a series of Google Translate, we landed on Kamana, which isn't technically a word. But if you go into some Southeast Asian languages, separate like ka and then mana, it's kind of slang term for where to next. Which we thought was super relevant in the travel nursing space that we're serving, where these folks are moving around every 3 months from city to city and state to state. And then we found out after the fact in Persian, it roughly translates to earn money, which is also pretty cool when you think about being a tool for a nurse to kind of navigate their career.
I love it. Where to next earn money? And it kind of dives right into my next question, which is kind of walking us through that user experience and maybe from both sides. How does the business work, both for nurses as well as for some of the folks that are trying to find nurses?
Yeah, sure. So healthcare professionals, whether you're a travel nurse or a permanent nurse, you've got a lot of paperwork. So unlike your typical job where you've got your resume and your references and your professional portfolio, a healthcare professional has a lot of like certifications and licenses and medical history documents and competency testing exams and different like compliance requirements that are set by the hospital, like drug screenings and all these different things that a nurse basically has to give to a hospital and then maintain throughout their employment. And in the travel nursing space, and my co-founder John was a travel nurse for a really long time, which is how we got into this. In the travel nursing space, you've got these nurses that are working with 3 or 5 or even more staffing agencies every 3 months to go to different jobs, and they've got these like 15 or 20 different credentials that generally they're having to give to three to 5 different companies every 3 months, and they're doing it mostly through phone calls, text, emails, a lot of legacy platforms that literally don't work from their phone. But these are travel nurses; they don't even have a computer with them, let alone own one most of the time. So you've got this massive duplication of paperwork. So we started out on that side of, John, my co-founder and good friend, as a travel nurse, of just having to do the same thing over and over and over again. We created this concept of a like universal profile that I can use like one profile with all the stuff that I need. And then when a recruiter calls me or when I call a recruiter, I can just say, hey, I'm going to kick you over this secure link. It's going to have all the information you need to get me submitted to a hospital, which is typically like a multi-day process. And as we got deeper into things like, our core mission still remains like solving problems for the nurse and for the healthcare professional and help them kind of navigate their credentials and career better. But on the staffing agency side of things, on the hospital side of things, you've got like John, the travel nurse, who's like, this process sucks. He's just one guy. The staffing agencies are dealing with this for like hundreds or thousands of nurses at once, because they're also responsible for maintaining and ensuring that like John, the travel nurse, is up to date on his licenses and certifications and drug screenings and medical documentation. So we really kind of stepped back and look at the big picture and said, like, how can we make this traditionally like 3 to 5 day process to submit a nurse to a hospital, and then this like 14 to 28 day process to like credential a nurse? Like, how can we make that better? So the other side of the platform effectively allows the nurse to work with any one of Kamana's customers with a single profile without duplicating any information. And then on the staffing agency and employer side of the platform, it's a place for them to process all this stuff with the goal to be a heck of a lot faster than 28 days.
Wow, that's great. And you mentioned your team, or you mentioned your co-founder, John. Was it just you two that were, started this company? And I guess who's on your core team?
Yeah, sure. So John's been a good friend of mine for a long time. We actually kind of concepted Kamana. He was up on a travel nurse assignment in Alaska, and I was up there hanging out with him and was watching him like wake up from the middle of the day. He's working night shift, but he's having to wake up to like email and talk to recruiters and call compliance people and, fax stuff, to point A and point B. So we kind of came up with the concept, but neither one of us are technical. And from the very beginning, we came to this with the mindset of like, we want to go find a technical co-founder and an engineer to like go at this problem with us. So we spent a few months kind of down that path and ended up connecting with our third co-founder, Kier, who's amazing software engineer and overall human being. And that was end of 2018. We kind of all ended up connecting and have been going at it full time ever since.
Great. So you found your dream team more or less and got going in 2018, you said? That's where the idea kind of started and kind of continued to build out?
Yeah, late 2018. And then, you could say we wrote our first line of code like beginning of 2019, and we launched our first product into the market, which is that digital wallet for healthcare professionals. Really around May, I would say a soft launch, but didn't really get it going until like midsummer.
Gotcha. Okay. And then tell us a little bit more now about from there, what happened next? Because I know we connected through Startup of the Year, and you were a part of our event down in Memphis, and then, ended up, investing in your company. And then, not too much further after that, you actually were acquired. And I want to hear that whole story, how that all came about.
Yeah, sure. So, got our kind of digital wallet launched out in the market, which again is just that way for nurses to store, track, manage, and share their credentials. And while that is focused like in the travel nursing space, because they're having to store and share this stuff more often than the usual nurse, all kinds of nurses and healthcare professionals, whether they're permanent or per diem or travel, they all use the platform. But we kept that like really in the market for several months, and we enabled these healthcare professionals to create this like really cool like link to the profile. And you can almost think of it as like sharing a Dropbox file, except for the link is like unique for each person it gets shared with. And it, to say it plainly, it looks really good. Staffing firms and hospitals are used to receiving all this information from a nurse in a series of 37 texts and emails. And the Kamana profile is like, this is everything you need to know about me, and here's a secure link, and you can just grab it all in 1 second. So we spent kind of several months through 2019 refining that. And then because of that, we started being introduced to agencies who'd reach out and say like, wow, this thing's really cool. Like, what the heck is this? And we're like, oh, we're actually building a platform for you too. And we were, thinking about it, but we just hadn't quite started it yet. And then we kind of get our, fast forward to the end of 2019, we get our first like agency side platform launch. Basically, you can think of it as a candidate portal, pretty limited functionality at the time, but between, end of 2019 and summer of 2020, we're kind of going through that mostly like iterative, like discovery kind of phase, and building out the things that, agencies need not just to do their job, but like our goal has never been to come in and build a platform to do the thing that staffing firms and hospitals do today. It's been to build a platform that does things differently, because the way things work today just isn't very efficient. So we kind of had a pretty, I would say, steady growth period through COVID, and kind of the hit of COVID. It actually, fortunately for us, unlike a lot of businesses, it did accelerate our growth a bit, where we had travel nurses that became so high in demand, and we did some unique things around matching for staffing agencies and matching for hospitals, particularly for COVID placements. But fast forward until the end of last year and into the beginning of this year, we started going down customer conversations with a group called Triage Staffing. It's a big staffing firm out of Omaha, Nebraska. And as we started gearing up for like, how are we going to go, fundraise for this next round of funding? And we got some interest and participation from them. And as we went down that conversation of like, let's try to make you a customer and potentially an investor, we realized that, we've both got the same kind of end goals of like, we think that the way this market operates today is not very good for like the wallets of the consumer and the healthcare system, because it's really expensive to operate healthcare staffing. And then just our kind of mutual desire to kind of put the nurse at the center of everything that we're doing, and making sure we're having this nurse first mentality and healthcare professional first mentality, and like people over profits mentality in the way healthcare staffing works. We ultimately decided to go at it together with Triage as an acquisition structure, and we continue to operate. We can talk more any specifics about this you want, but we continue to operate Kamana as Kamana, and now just have a super strong, not just financial backing, but also like a wealth of knowledge and industry experience, as well as, doors into other sectors of the healthcare staffing space.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome. Can you share a little bit more about anything that surprised you along that journey? Because it was pretty quick, turnaround, and you ended up, getting acquired pretty quickly. And obviously now it seems like, you're kind of off to the races here. So tell us a little bit more about anything that along the way that kind of surprised you with the process.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, the biggest thing that continues to surprise me every day, right, is like now we've got access to this like great staffing firm with people from, all kinds of experience of other staffing agencies and hospitals and just like all kinds of the healthcare staffing world. And, we're, in addition to them, we've now got almost 100 staffing agencies on the platform. So we're communicating with Triage, we're communicating with these staffing agencies, we're communicating with our healthcare professional users. And biggest thing that continues to surprise me is like this market is just crazy complex. It's really messed up, and we learn new crazy things all day, every day. So you think of 2.5 years of kind of research and iteration and development, we'd be experts in every nook and cranny of what's happening in healthcare staffing, but there's a new surprise every single day. So I'd say that's been interesting, and maybe something on the acquisition front. We surprised ourselves by going down that path. I know when, we, worked with Startup of the Year and established as an investor, like if I told you we were going to be acquired, not long after you made an investment, I'd be like, no, that's not going to happen. So I would say the fact that we even went down this path was surprising to us, but it really came down to, we've got, two options. We can either go after like the venture capital path where there's a lot of money to be made in this industry, but the quickest money to be made doesn't necessarily solve the problems that we're looking to solve. So we surprised ourselves by going down this path of, rather than going the kind of more traditional, VC route where we felt like we were headed, kind of went down this path of strategic partnership from somebody who's, not only got the capital to finance it, but also the desire to solve the pain points for themselves.
Strategic partnerships are so critical, and I think often underlooked, downplayed, if you will. So really, obviously, bravo to you guys for figuring that out early by just working with one of your customers and then listening to what their needs were, and then realizing, wow, there's something here. So really think that's interesting, and I think more startups can learn from you along this, hopefully from listening to you share this story. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. I don't know, do you want to share anything short-term or long-term goal-wise with what you guys are working on?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, short term, we talked about the pain points of this mass, A, mass repetition of paperwork, B, and I don't think I brought this up earlier, but the way data is exchanged in this industry, like there's a lot of sensitive information flying back and forth. And it's all done in very insecure ways. So bringing like eliminating the repetition for the healthcare professionals and the staffing agencies, making it more secure for, the healthcare professionals, the staffing agencies, and the hospitals. And hopefully bringing that kind of cost down in the short term would be our short-term goals. But, the travel nursing space and the healthcare staffing space, we feel is just a tipping point for like the problems that Kamana is trying to solve in the broader, let's say, healthcare landscape. And, where we're really headed is without giving away too much, I'd say, 2 years from now, our goal is, you've got every healthcare professional in the country on the platform. and they're using the platform, not just to like manage their compliance data, but also to really navigate their careers. And we've got a lot of cool opportunities, both with Triage as well as with the rest of our customer base and our continually growing base of healthcare professionals. And so we're doing our best as we're scaling, I would say a lot, faster than we were 6 months ago. We're doing our best to make sure that we don't kind of lose our roots of, being super customer centric and super user centric, and really keep track and make sure like we're spending real time talking to real people every day and not getting kind of lost in the world of scaling, and making sure that we're keeping ourselves focused and our ear to the ground on what the actual problems are in the industry.
Great. That's really interesting. Yeah. And it sounds like there's just a lot to be done. It's like, there's just a lot of things you can work on. It sounds like you're finding new things every day. So, let's switch gears again and go talk a little bit about, some of the things that you've learned, along the way here, and maybe some words of advice for founders as they're going through acquisitions, or maybe the due diligence process. I don't know if anything, maybe you've blocked all that out already, but, because I know those times can be a little bit stressful and painful, but maybe share some of the things that you've learned if you can think of any.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that I had a lot of great, between, folks like Startup of the Year and Established and other great investors that we had with us, as well as we had, several awesome angel investors on our cap table. And then, Lighthouse Labs, the accelerator program we went through. Between all those things, and then the community where I'm based out here in Denver, we had a lot of good, I would say, early advice about like what it would be like to go down the venture capital path, and what it would be like to go down a potential acquisition path in the future. And one thing that I would say I'm proud of doing personally and doing as a company is we set up really, I would say, streamlined processes and transparent processes during even our like pre-seed and kind of seed funding, where like we set up, this is our data room. Like, we're going to literally be super transparent with you about like, we've only got $200 in the bank. It's like that kind of transparent nature of like the way we started our fundraising process actually helped a lot in the acquisition process, where, we go down this like path of like, we're exploring acquisition, and I'm talking to kind of founders and mentors about what that might look like. And they're like, oh, it's going to be the worst thing in the world. And when the due diligence kind of checklist comes in from the Triage side or the Triage legal side, it was nice because we'd already checked, 80% of the boxes through our earlier fundraising process. So where I feel like I'm rambling there, but where I'm going with that is like setting up like organization around like your processes early on from a funding perspective. If you continue to maintain your pro forma and your financial projections, and you're not just doing it to impress the investors, like to raise your seed round, you're also doing it to make sure you're running the company the right way. So keeping that stuff like organized, I would say, was a huge help in the process, where I can recall a lot of sleepless nights as we were going through the process, but I can also like look back and kind of overall my recollection was like, it wasn't that bad. But I think it's because we kind of set ourselves up from an organization perspective, like really early on.
Was it, totally agree with you. That data room was great. And obviously we were able to see it right away when we were looking to invest, and, it helped, having those muscles ready to go, obviously help a lot. And then I guess I wanted to ask you, you mentioned sleepless nights. I'm curious, what was that? Was it just, anxiety about making sure the deal goes through because you've now committed, or what were the things that kind of were some of those things that were kind of getting you as you were trying to get through it?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of it probably comes down to like our decision of, are we ready for this? Like, we just never in a million years imagined that we would kind of sell the company 2 years into it. And I would say a lot of it was like, are we making the right decision? Because we, just from a selfish perspective, like we liked working for ourselves. We liked calling the shots. We liked being able to kind of pivot on a dime and say like, that part of the market actually doesn't need as much attention as we thought it did. And just inevitably, like the more people you involve, and we could have said the same thing about, taking, big dollars from venture capital, like the more people you involve, like the harder it is to make swift moves and kind of all that. So I would say the biggest kind of sleepless nights were like, are we making the right decision? And, every time we really thought about it, it was like, there aren't very many people in the healthcare staffing space or in the healthcare space in general, honestly, that see the future of healthcare staffing and the future of like healthcare, like people management, the way that we see it. And triage is one of kind of those rare birds out there that is willing to admit like the foundation of the industry they've been running their very successful business on for 15 years is completely broken, and it needs like massive and radical change. And you don't get that very often from people inside the space. It's normally like disruptors coming from outside the space that have that mentality. And I think we kept bringing ourselves back to like there's obviously the benefit of like running completely autonomously and like staying as lean as we possibly can. But if we were going to go take money from anybody, it all just came back to like triage is the right person to take it from.
No, that makes sense, and that helps a lot. I mean, I just always am curious what's keeping people awake at night, and a lot of times it's life changing, right? The change in general is it causes anxiety, because you can't control it. So I get that. So that makes a lot of sense. And I guess you're hearing a lot more about that due to the pandemic, right? People are not getting out there as much, and obviously aren't having the same interactions as much, even though we're all on Zoom all the time or whatever. Curious if there's any things you guys have done to kind of get through some of that, just because run your own company in your own silo. It means now you're working with others as well, but I'm just curious if there's any things you've done or your team does to kind of take some of that anxiety and kind of get rid of it, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I can say on a personal level, I mean, pre-pandemic, I'll be really honest, like, the lockdown orders and everything, I would say I probably felt it less than the average person because I kind of stayed locked in my computer most of the time anyways. But one thing that we've always tried to focus on, personally as a team and also personally as a company as we grow is like personal health is super important. We do try to take care of ourselves and take care of each other and spend time outside. I think has been a big helper. Sitting inside all day is brutal. But as we like are kind of growing and scaling the team, it's tough being a remote company, but we were remote from day one, and we've grown from 3 to 10 plus several contractors and interns in a year, which is hyper fast growth. So we do try to make sure that like we're making time to like make people feel like they're not having to work 100% of the time, and make our employees and teammates feel like that we do feel it's super important, like this kind of, I guess, anti-startup culture of like working 24 hours a day and just kind of grinding yourself to death. We make a really good point to say like that's not who we are and that's not who we want to be. And just emphasizing like if you want to take the afternoon off to go hang out with your family, like take the afternoon off, go hang out with your family. Like everyone kind of knows what their job is, and I don't know, my advice to myself, I say that right to all of our employees, and I sometimes have to give that advice to myself. Sometimes I enjoy what I do. I enjoy working a lot, and I do it because I like it. But occasionally I've got to tell myself the same thing. I tell my co-founders and co-workers of like, hey Dave, you gotta get up. You've been inside for 2-3 days now working on this problem. You got to go spend some time outdoors and go hop on a bike or go for a walk or whatever.
Yeah, it's hard to drink from an empty glass, so you got to replenish that puppy and keep it going for sure. I agree 100%. And we're getting close on time here, so I wanted to kind of do one quick hit, and this is kind of a fun one, and feel free to share what you like here. But I'm always interested and intrigued what kinds of things different founders use. Like I call it the stack, right? You hear that a lot. So I'm curious, what kinds of things do you use? And of course, cybersecurity aside, if you have issues with that, don't share. But what are the things you're using to kind of be most productive, stay most connected, and be so help build your team?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one thing we I would say maybe sometimes skewed too far in the other direction in terms of like, let's try anything and everything, all these kind of new tools and technologies that enable you to stay connected. But we do, like, from a pure stack perspective, I think like many companies, we run a lot of our central communication out of Slack. We run a lot of like automations there where, instead of getting in meetings every day, we've got a cool little tool called Geekbot that runs our daily stand-up autonomously, and things like that where we try really hard being a remote company. Like, you've got to have some FaceTime, you've got to have some Zoom time, but at the same time, you've got to set up your tools and technologies to be able to focus. So we just got like some personal mantras we live by at the company, kind of the whole one thing focus, like what's my one thing I'm going to focus on today, something that we try to bring into everybody that we bring on. And then from a technology standpoint, like things like Slack for real time, things like Asana for our product and project management, and ultimately just try to keep things connected. But at the same time, there's all these like little micro like niche tools that you can use for very, very small things. So it's I'd say our stack is all over the place. How about that?
That's great. I'm always curious to hear. And, do you guys use email a lot? Because I mean, even some people are moving away from that. So I'm just curious what your take is. And you're using Hey, or using email, or using Gmail, that kind of stuff. Because
That's
some people
funny, I until very recently, I would pride myself on the fact that we'd never sent an internal email. But we actually had to, now that we're growing bigger, we've got to have like data security policies, and you've got to have record of that stuff. So we implemented a data security policy. And it was the first email we've ever sent internally as a company, which I thought was kind of funny.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, so we do try to like minimize like real-time communication in Slack, asynchronous communication in Asana. And like as a remote company, like trying to just maintain focus, like if it can be asynchronous, it should be asynchronous, because this like constant life of disruption, which I think has probably gotten worse of all these companies that have transitioned from in office to home, that like are trying to figure out how to like monitor their employees, and just that constant like disruption and like inability to trust your employees to focus is, I think, not serving a lot of companies well. So, and you mentioned Hey. I'll say that my co-founder Kier and I are both fans of Hey. We've been using, we were on the wait list early on. So we've got personal stuff on the Hey side, but then we just got on Hey for work, but we're testing it because we're not quite sure if we're gonna roll it all the way out yet.
Right. And see how it kind of interacts with everyone else's regular emails, right? Or whatever. So
sure. Obviously, email is used on external customer communication.
Of course. Yeah. I'm just always curious. It's people are doing different things now. And especially with all the remote work we do, just always curious to see how people are creating new workflows and hacks and things to make things a little bit smoother. So thank you so much, Dave, for sharing that. Is there anything else you would like to share for any of our startup community here? We've got a large startup community of listeners, and as well as investors, that listen to this podcast and are part of our community. So why don't you, is there anything else you'd like to share as far as advice or thoughts from your journey as a startup founder?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say the biggest thing that's served us well as a company, as I mentioned it earlier, is just like some would say I'm like honest to a fault, it's like just super transparent about everything. But I would say like the transparency that we've maintained, like both with our investors and our customers and our users, has been, I think a really huge win for us. And it's instilled, a lot of trust in us as a company, which I think is great. And then other thing I guess I'd share with the community is, everybody knows a nurse or knows somebody, at a hospital or knows a healthcare professional. And, I promise if you go talk to them about, the paperwork, everyone will roll their eyes. So if anyone wants to send some folks our way about how we're making things and life a little easier for the world of healthcare staffing, CamanaHealth.com. I'm sure it'll be posted with the show here. So.
Well, you must be reading my script, because I was going to ask you to show and tell some things that you guys are working on and best way to connect with you. So I guess that's the best. Is there anything else we should know about that's coming down the pipe here?
Yeah, I'd say we've got a lot of really exciting, kind of features and functionality coming down the pipe from, Q2, Q3, Q4, 2021 standpoint. And without sharing too many details, I'd say, everyone kind of keep their ear to the ground of Kamana. And if you haven't, heard of us in the healthcare world, our goal is that's going to change here pretty quickly over the next few months.
Fantastic. And best way to connect is CamanaHealth.com, right?
Yeah, CamanaHealth.com. We're on, all the normal social media channels at Kamana Health, and would love to connect. And if anyone wants to come chat about all the problems in the healthcare space, we're always open for a conversation.
All right, Dave Dworschak, thanks so much for being a part of this and being part of our community. And obviously, best of luck with everything you're up to. And we appreciate what you're doing in the healthcare space. So thanks so much. Yeah, thank you so much, Frank. We appreciate everything you do for the startup community too. It's been
It seems like yesterday that I came out to Memphis for the Startup of the Year conference, and I think we had one customer at the time. So a lot has changed in a short time.
Absolutely. Yesterday, that seemed like 10 years ago because we were meeting in person. So
Yeah.
That's the other thing that's kind of funny about it. It's the last time we did something like that. So really great to see you. And obviously thank you for coming on today to share your story.
Yeah, it was good catching up. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks so much, Dave. It's always good to hear from founders in our community, as we, love hearing the stories about successful exits and obviously the behind the scenes side of it as well. Like some of the anxieties and things you've gone through kind of show that, anyone that's going through this knows what you mean, and, you're not alone. It's very natural. So appreciate you bringing that to this cast and sharing those stories. So also excited about Kamana and Triage. Obviously, sounds like things are going gangbusters, and love to continue to follow you in your journey. So thank you for joining us, and can't wait to hear more. Well, that's this episode. Thanks so much for joining us. Hopefully you learned something from Dave and our conversation, and look forward to having you back here soon to, learn some more things and share some more ideas. So thanks again for listening, and, subscribe, and please do review us if you love the show. If you don't, love to hear those too. Everything helps us improve the show. And remember, if you have a startup idea, today is the best day to get it going. Today is the best day to start up. Not tomorrow, not the next day. Get something going and iterate, and eventually you'll be off to the races. Until next time, I'm Frank Gruber signing off. Stay safe and be well out there.
Thanks for listening to the Startup of the Year podcast. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll be back with another episode soon.